Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the legend Teddy Atlas, fresh off a trip to Vegas. Teddy, how was it?
Yeah, good. My leg's not feeling so good. I don't know. I really think that pool, that shark rides and stuff in the pool a couple of weeks ago with my beautiful grandchildren, I think it did a little something, but I'm gonna have to get it fixed or get it filmed better. But plus you do a lot of walking when you're out there anyway, so maybe that's part of it. You got to I've been just ignoring it and hoping it'll recover a little bit and feel a little better. But what really made me feel better was seeing my grandson and my son and my son's wife, my daughter-in-law, and being with my wife out in Vegas, being with them. That made me feel better. And I flew home late last night. It was a great card out there. I mean, it was crazy stuff going on with the last-minute replacement, all that stuff that we'll get into in a little while. But and then just confirming what a monster Pereira is, you know, that he is becoming the face of UFC. He is... He could possibly wind up being the greatest UFC fighter of all time. And this is a guy that, you know, if he was in boxing, we would call him an amateur because he's only had about 9, 10 fights, 11 fights, whatever. Yeah. So it's just extraordinary.
They're talking about him challenging for the heavyweight title.
Well, I mean, that's all you're going to want to see. Another winner, he's wiping everyone out. So
he weighed in at 225 yesterday after he made the weight 205. 24 hours later, 2.25.
And his power carries, obviously. Punches are born, they're not made. His power carries up, just like a guy like Pacquiao who carried up so many weight classes, you know. His power is definitely carried up from his climb in the weight classes, Pereira, that is. So, yeah, and he's got the skeleton, he's got the frame for it. And you're getting to the point where you don't want to see him with anyone else. You want to see he's this good, okay. Let him become the first 3 division UFC champion of all time and let him go and fight heavyweights. See if he can. For me, the first one would be see if he could fight Aspinall, and then of course, if he gets past that, you got the fight of the century in the UFC or their own version of it against John Jones. You know, if you could ever make that. But we get ahead of ourselves. But he is making people think in those kind of ways, which you don't think about too many fighters in those kind of ways, those extraordinary ways. But I got home late last night. Our flight was delayed coming back because of weather. So I got home late. And the only bad thing about doing a UFC, it's great. I'm with all great people out there. You couldn't be with. I mean, I'm with an all-star cast of directors with Charlie Monahan, all the people, and all the commentators. I got to work with Poirier. He was great. He's going to be really good at this. And I got to, of course, all the guys I work with, Chael Sonnen and Megan O'Leary and John Anik and just one after another. Brett Okamoto, the writer who does a great job, Ian Parker, the guys that do the great job with the handicapping, and his other guy, I can't remember his name right. There's 2 of them that do it. They both do a really good job. It's just a pleasure working with talented people, and not just talented people that are just good people, nice people that you feel good to be around. So
I saw you met my neighbor, Michael Chandler.
Michael Chandler, yeah. He didn't tell me he was your neighbor, by the way. But
I'm kidding. He just lives in Nashville.
Oh, okay. He didn't mention that. I'm glad you defined that. But yeah, no, and he's a. I saw him. I met him. He's a gentleman. He's obviously a seek and destroy missile. I put up a tweet about him. But he's a guy who only fights the best. Since he's come to the UFC, I don't know anybody. Well, there's a couple, but they all fight tough because that's what the UFC is all about. There's no freebies, no free lunch. But Chandler's fought nothing but top guys since he got to the UFC, and he does nothing but bring fire, bring great fights, and just brings everything. He brings everything, and he, almost to his detriment. He's he goes to get you. If he could maybe just modify it a little bit, and just control it, temper it down a little bit, it might be helpful to a point. But his style is to go get you, and he goes to get you, and he's a fan favorite. There's a lot of fan favorites in the UFC, but he's one of them. But he made himself a favorite to me, just a gentleman, the class act that I saw him to be. And the reason I said the only problem with the UFC, doing the UFC out there when I do it, when ESPN asked me to do it, it's great. But I don't get to watch the boxing that night because I'm on the air doing the UFC all night. Matter of fact, we were on the air for 3 days. We were on the air Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, working with, as I said, with all these great guys. And so I come home late last night, and I have to get ready for this show, for these people, those guys, the guys out there, you guys that are waiting to hear what we're going to say. We appreciate that you're there waiting. So I was up to 3 a.m. watching the fights, watching the tapes of the fights or the replays of the fights. So I'm going to tell you right now, if it was merited, I would cover everyone, which you guys know already. I tried to. We tried to. Nobody's ever fully satisfied. That, hopefully we try to satisfy you. But then every once in a while, someone would tell me, my son would say, a couple guys complained you didn't do this one, or you didn't do that one, or you didn't do one from London, across the pond. You didn't eat crumpets with your guys. You didn't have tea with your favorite fans, or some of your favorite fans in London, kibitzing about the fights. But I try to get all the ones that make sense. Full disclosure, I am not covering every fight. After being up to 3 a.m, I did the main ones, and we'll cover those main ones. There was a couple other ones that are not the main ones, and they weren't the most competitive fights. So I'll talk about the results of them, but I am not going into analytic space for those. We're just going to cover the ones that I think were the ones that merit covering. But first we'll start with the UFC, I guess. The one fight that I didn't see was the one that was the women's fight that ended anyway in a terrible gash.
Yeah.
That was obviously unfortunate.
Beautiful elbow, though. The girl who threw it deserved the win because she did exactly what she intended and cut her so badly she couldn't continue. Chiasson?
Yeah. It was. I saw that. I got back for that, where I saw that the woman that had it stopped, that was bleeding, the poor thing, she really wanted to go on,
Yeah. Vicious cut, though, my God.
True spirit of a warrior.
I don't think anyone would disagree with that stoppage. It was cut so deep.
No, you're right. But true spirit of a gladiator. I mean, she was
For sure.
just wanted at it. Wanted at it.
Yep.
So talking about wanting at it, Paige and Garry. Paige put up a good fight against the rising superstar Garry. Put up a good fight. Really, really did.
High-level standing fight. Not the most exciting fight of the night, that's for sure. But
Garry won it by taking it to the floor, though. That's kind of how he won it. I mean, for me, DC, that's another one who I was working with. I'm glad I didn't forget to mention DC. Daniel Cormier, another gentleman, another guy who really knows what he's talking about, obviously, one of the greats in the UFC. He was telling me when I was working with him Thursday, I think it was Thursday, he was saying, Teddy, this guy's really good, Garry. I haven't seen him really tested to the point where I can get my head around it to that level, but to know what he really is, in my mind at least. But he did get tested in his fight, and I thought he pulled it out in the third round.
Did you see the one point when Garry had him on the ground? He had a deep rear naked choke locked up on Venom Page. And it's kind of like what I've always said, when you get a choke like that on a guy in practice, they're going to tap and reset. But in a fight, they'll die before they tap. And Michael Venom Page just did all the right things to defend the choke and got out of it. And it was so deep. Even the commentators were like, oh, that's it. He's got him. He had him choked so deeply. And man, these guys, they're all such high-level practitioners in all areas. But Garry, yeah, to your point, Garry outfoxed them on the ground for sure.
I thought Page did a great job. I mean, Garry got the win, and he's a confident guy. He is a guy that they're looking to be one of the next stars in the UFC. But Page is 37 years old. I thought he did a great job. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would have had it a draw. I mean, I know the last half of the third round, Garry pulled it out. He took the last half, but the first half of the third round, I thought it was Page. So for me, it could have been a draw. I mean, you don't get too many draws in the UFC, but Page switches, from lefty to right. Garry was gauging distance early. Gage kicked Garry. Garry blocked it and took him to, down to the ground where he had control. And it was pretty impressive, wasn't it? The way Garry, when he got him on the floor in the first round, he was like a spider enveloping a beetle. I mean, he really was. I thought he was going to, eat him. I mean, the way he wrapped his legs around him, the way he was like a boa constrictor. I mean, he just wrapped himself around him. And it was really incredible. But to your point, Page escaped it from that deep choke. Give Page a lot of credit. He survived. It was obviously all Garry's round in the first round, but the second round, Page landed some. He did a good job striking. He had the edge striking. He landed some a nice counter right hand. Then he landed a nice jab in right hand, and Page's awkwardness and quickness was paying dividends for him striking. Then there was a big missed punch by Page that allowed Garry to grab him and take him to the fence and control him there. But when Garry got a leg bar, I think it was in the second round, Ken, and Page also escaped that. And then, as I said, Page striking was giving Garry some trouble. Page very, like I touched on, very unorthodox, very quick and athletic.
Karate style.
Yeah, Page landed a right hand before the bell. I had a 1-1 going into the third, and in the last round, Page in the third round was just, again, quicker striking, very unconventional. He had Garry, I thought, confused and waiting, hesitant a little bit with the striking. Of course, they got on the mat again, and Page was on top with Garry's legs wrapped around him. Garry went for the takedown with about 2 minutes left. I thought it was Page's round up to that point, and with 2 minutes left, Garry got him on the ground. I thought it was almost a desperation move. I don't know how you read it, but like Garry knew the fight was that close, and he had to do something to win that last part, to grab that last round. And with about 2 minutes left, he did something. He wound up getting him on the mat, and he had position on, Page's. He wound up being on Page's back, and I thought it saved the round for him. Again, I thought it could have been a draw, but Garry wins the last half of the round, and Page the first half, slightly to Garry, I guess, for those last 2 minutes, and Garry's a future star that is in the making. So I gave a lot of credit to both, but I gave a lot of credit to Page, and he's a gentleman in defeat. No nasty verbiage or anything. He was just a real gentleman.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a great fight, and like you said, I thought Venom Page was getting the better of him on the feet, and the only time that Garry had the advantage was when he took him down, which is what he had to do, and he did it. All right, so the next up was the girl fight. We talked about that. The cut stopped it there, and then that brings us to our friend Anthony Lionheart Smith was in against the last-minute replacement in Roman Dolidze. Dolidze got the better of him 2 of the 3 rounds. At least one judge had it 30-27, but all standing in this one, and Roman Dolidze just maybe too young, too fast here. How'd you like that one? What'd you see?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Anthony Smith. I love him as a commentator, as a person, as a fighter. He's so experienced. He's such, Lionheart. You don't get called Lionheart for nothing. And, he's so good at commentating. He's so articulate. He's so smart. But he wants to keep fighting. It's getting closer and closer to that door. Everybody gets closer to that door. There's no beating that guy named Father Time. And you could see that, as tremendous as he's been, and he still can obviously beat a lot of guys. But how long do you go? That's always a difficult decision, personal decision. How long do you go? But he is getting older, but he still gets in there and handles himself. With a lot of the times, obviously, younger guys, but
you know where I thought you could see it before he even started moving, I think, is like his physique is just starting to look like a little bit older. Like if you look at a time lapse of when he started, there's a marked difference in the physique, and I think that, to your point, it's like those young guys just keep getting younger and faster and leaner, and it's like time catches up with everyone. But I love Anthony Smith, so it pains me to say it, but...
Well, I think part of it was they both took it on short notice, so maybe that's part of the body that you're talking about. But I'll tell you, before I break it down real quick, a lot of people are probably going to criticize me for saying this and saying it's based on friendship, and it's not, because I don't do that.
Anyone who say that hasn't been paying attention. I've never known you to do anything but tell the truth.
No, it's really, at least it's not conscious if I'm doing it. It definitely isn't. It's based on what I think. I could have gave Smith the fight. I know what you just said. I understand. A lot of people, obviously, they thought Dolidze won. I thought it was that close. I was favoring Smith. I really was. I know the second round he got dominated. I know. And some people said, could it be a 10-8 round? No, it wasn't a 10-8 round. He didn't get hurt that way. He got dominated, but and controlled, but he didn't get hurt that way. So no, it wasn't a 10-8 round, but. The first round, close. I had Smith very close. Close round. I get it. So that's where it starts for me. I gave the first round. I thought he won it. Second round, obviously, big round for Dolidze. He dropped Smith, although Smith actually stumbled going backwards over his feet because there were punches thrown at him, but they didn't really land clean. That's not what caused the knockdown that got Smith on the floor. It was really him stumbling back and fell. And then, of course, Dolidze dominated him on the ground for the second round. Then the third round, very close again. But on the weight of some good right-hand strikes, I had Smith winning and winning the fight 2-1. So, but I definitely, no matter what I feel, you say that Dolidze won, fine, but close. I thought it was close, but to have it 3-0, one judge had it 3-0. That I can't agree with. That I can't understand. How one judge had it 3-0. I didn't see 3-0. That's for sure, but. Both guys were looking for right hands. Smith looks for that right hand. He counters with it. If you throw the jab from too close or too slow, he'll counter you with the right hand. Sometimes he'll go low to set it up high. Dolidze looks for the right hand. Both guys were looking to that right hand. And again, I thought that the right hand strikes by Smith covered him or carried him in the third round. But next fight was was pretty extraordinary.
Dan Ige, last-minute replacement, and by last minute, I literally mean minutes. They got him the day of the fight. Eric Nixick over at Extreme Couture saves the day. I guess Ortega got sick after he couldn't make weight at 145. They moved to fight to 155, and then at like 4 a.m. the night before the fight, they call Lopez and tell him, change. It's now at 165, and you're fighting Dan Ige, and Dan Ige represented himself like a champion. I mean, he lost the fight, but my God, just to show up and be in there as a co-main, last minute, day of is crazy. Just extraordinary turn of events. The fact that they even allowed the fight to go on the commission was kudos to everyone involved to pull this off. But my God, what a performance by Ige to be getting a massage in the morning and fighting that evening in a co-main UFC 303 was just extraordinary. How'd you like the fight?
Yeah, before I go further, you mentioned about how Ige, which he did, he performed like a champion, behaved like a champion, everything. But so did Lopez. Lopez, let's not forget that. Lopez went through a lot. They both went through roller coasters, but Lopez was through a roller coaster, like you touched on before. You know, he thought he was fighting Ortega. The weight changed. Now he was from one weight to another weight class.
20 pounds.
20 pounds, 4 o'clock in the morning, finding out all this stuff. You know, and then all of a sudden, none of that's happening. He's fighting a whole different guy. So he went through a lot. He was a real pro and behaved like a champ, just like Ige. I don't think ever in the history of definitely UFC. I don't know about MMA entirely, but I don't think there's ever been a situation. There's been situations with late replacements, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a few days, but a few hours? No.
For the fans that don't know, right, Teddy? There's physicals. There's so many hoops you have to jump through to get approved for a fight. It's insane. Yeah. It's crazy they could even get it done in a day.
It's crazy you could even find anyone to say yes, put his hand up.
Well, in the UFC, I'm not surprised someone would say yes. I'm surprised that they would actually be able to get approved, get a physical, have everything lined up that they could make any weight. It's just crazy. It's unheard of.
Well, the stars lined up. For that to happen, because I don't know if he had just fought or he was supposed to fight, and his medicals were just done. His medicals had just been done, so the athletic commission there had his medicals. Otherwise, it couldn't have happened because they wouldn't have had time to get all the medicals done. So his medicals were in place, and they were fresh. They were up to date. Like I said, he just got them. So that lined the stars up, but And he wanted to fight. He actually, when he heard about what was going on, he actually sent a message, an email to Dana White's main guy who does everything for Dana White. He sent him an email saying, "Please give me this chance. Please give me a chance to be great. Give me a chance to be great. I want this." And he got it. And boy, oh boy, but literally. Because you always hear last-minute replacement. It's really last 2 days, last 3. This was last minute. This was a couple hours. It happened in boxing probably it's got to be close to 40 years ago. I'm not sure the time, but it was a long time ago. I was down. I bet you most people would say it's never happened before or it's never happened, or it's very rarely happened we don't even know about. Well, I'll tell you one that you don't know about. But it was when the days were different, when the testing, the commissions, they weren't as strict, so you could get it. To your point, it couldn't have happened today. That's what I'm going to tell you from the start. But it was 35, 40, I don't even know how many years ago. But I guess 30-something, because I'm not in Catskill anymore. I'm training fighters down in New York at Gleason's gym, and I'm in Atlantic City. I'm trying to remember what hotel it was. It might have been a Tropicana. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm in Atlantic City. It's a television. I think it was a NBC show. And so it's a television show, Saturday afternoon. in Atlantic City. Atlantic City was like Vegas. They used to do all the big fights. They don't anymore. So we're down there, and I'm with the late great Mickey Duff, one of the greatest promoters and minds of all time in boxing from London. And he's got a fight out. If my memory serves me correct, Duke McKenzie. He was an Olympian. He wound up winning a world title. Small guy. It was a small weight. I don't know if it was bantamweight or even less. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And he's got him, and the opponent falls out at the last minute. Last minute. So, I mean, it's like impossible. But Mickey Duff, nothing's impossible. Those guys, they're determined. They said, no. We got to get this. We got to get a fight. They put phone calls in. My friend Johnny Boz was a matchmaker. They put phone calls in to him. I think Johnny Boz wound up coming up. He's not with us anymore. He wound up coming with the opponent. And they put calls. Next thing you know, we got a guy down in New York City. And this is literally 6 hours before the fight. And it's a 2-hour drive from New York, maybe 2.5 hours. So you got to figure all that is. So they're trying to figure, okay, get him in the car. They get him in the car, and he literally wraps his hands in the car. So when he gets out of the car, they don't have to waste time with wrapping. Now you could never do that today because you got to get examined. You came in.
I think have someone watch him wrap the hands.
Yeah. And I think maybe the doctor might have put a tongue depressor on his tongue. Maybe. I don't know. He might have. I don't even know if he had a stethoscope. Maybe he did. You good? Okay, you good. Whatever it wasn't the requirements that it is today. It wasn't any requirements that they could get away with that. So he gets out of the car, 2.5 hour drive from Manhattan, gets out, he's got his hands wrapped, comes in, and basically goes in the locker room, gets dressed, and he fights. I think he had to borrow shorts, and he had to borrow a cup from somebody, and he did. And he fights on television in a main fight. Loses but goes the rounds. A guy that knew how to go the rounds and everything else. So I'm not even going to tell you. I don't know if I should. I'm going to leave it up to you, Ken. I don't know. Should I tell you what his vocation was? Because it's going to make a hell of a story. But this is a family show. Yeah. This is a family show. But it was before the Rudy Giuliani days. So do you know where I'm going now? Times Square. Yep. Times Square was Sam's laughing. Times Square.
He was a purveyor of services.
Times Square was I mean, it was a hellhole. It really was. It was a snake pit.
Did he wear a fur hat and walk with a walking stick?
He didn't wear anything. All right, how's that? How's that? His job was in one of these places on 42nd Street, which Giuliani got rid of because there was a lot of bad stuff there. I mean, drugs, all that stuff was rampant. But
you mean like it is today?
A lot of perverted stuff. And he got rid of, I mean, really, he did. He cleaned it up. Like him, hate him, I don't care. But he cleaned the joint up. And there was all kinds of sex shows going on Times Square, all that stuff, really. It was so. This guy, that's what he did for a living. This guy worked in one of these places.
Sideshow?
Where all day long he was, I guess, performing sort of acts. All right? And so here's the greatest line of all time. And the people out there that know Mickey Duff, the old timers that know him, know how witty he was. I mean, he was a great boxing guy, but how witty he was, how funny he was. Really, he was one of the sharpest guys you ever met. And so they're bringing him in. He turns to me. He goes, the guy will be in shape. I said, what do you mean in shape? Mickey, you're getting him on 6 hours notice. He goes, yeah, but what he does for a living, he's always in shape. He's got, you do that for a living, Teddy? I'm not going to use the word of what he did, but you know what? Yeah. All day for a living, you're in shape. You're in good shape. And he was in good shape. The guy went 8 rounds. I think it was 10 rounds, 8 rounds. Maybe it was 10 rounds. I don't even know what it was. But yeah, he was right. He was in good shape. So that's the story. That's one of those boxing stories that that only in boxing. I'm sure every vocation, every trade has their own version of some crazy story. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying it's not the first time somebody actually took a fight on. But this was obviously different circumstances, all entirely different circumstances. You just have to love what Dan Ige did, and I'm gonna break down the fight, and he's not just stepping in. But he's stepping in with a top guy, a guy who looks like he could be a star in Lopez. Just a top guy, a young guy, a explosive guy.
I mean, the guy was the co-main on a monster card fighting Ortega, who's been in for the title. He was a split second away from being the champion when he had Volkanovski locked in 2 submissions. I mean, Ortega, I would never call him a gatekeeper, but like they were saying, hey, if you beat Ortega, you're ready for the next step. And Ortega's out and Ige comes in. So to your point, he's getting in there with someone as close to the title as you can get.
Yeah, right. Just like that with 3 hours, whatever. I think he said 3-4 hours notice. So he, just extraordinary, the whole thing. But it speaks to how hungry these guys, how tough they are mentally, that they will take fights on last minute notice. They will take changes. They will deal with a lot of fighters that I know they won't. They'll say no. They're just no, and they're whining. And I'm not saying I blame them if it's not the right situation for them and they don't feel they can handle it, they can win. I'm just saying, but you don't rarely. I don't know if I've ever heard about anyone in the UFC when they asked to fill in under these extraordinary conditions. I've never heard of one say no, but you've never seen somebody have to do it on 3-4 hours notice. But what I want to touch on before I go into the breakdown is that, and I talk about these things when I do motivational speaking, and I'm sure there's someone out there that's probably going to grab some of this stuff because everybody seems to be a motivational speaker these days. I don't know where they come from or what their background is, but I hear about a lot of them, and I just wish they would grab their own material instead of other people's. But I talk about this, and it's in a deep way, but it's very simplistic. Even though it's deep in a lot of people's minds that they haven't really wrapped their heads around it or heard it or been familiar with it. But you always hear core strength. Now, core strength. It's important you do your marathon stuff. It's important to everyone, the physical core strength. And you do different physical exercises to get that core strength. But for me, Ige was he really was the definition for me of what true core strength. And like I said, when I talk to whether it's the NFL, whether it's in the University of Connecticut college basketball team or whatever it is, or me going to schools when they ask me to talk to kids, or going to prisons, to be honest. I do that too. To talk about redemption and to talk to people in those kind of situations. But the greatest strength you have, the real core strength, is your character. And Dan Ige used that strength to almost win the fight, to take the fight, to allow himself to say, yes, I believe, yes. That's the core strength, the strength of his being, the strength of the man he is, the strength of his beliefs, the strength of the way he lives his life. See, that's why you got to live your life the right way. People will often ask me, Ken, they say, how much of it is it important, to live the right life, outside the cage, outside the ring, in anything you do, using your mind, being able to talk, being able to give proper instructions as a teacher, proper examples as a coach, whatever it is. How important is it to live the right way outside? And I always say, look, I've seen fighters get away with doing some things wrong physically. I'm not going to lie to you, especially when they're young. The body can overcome a lot of things. I've seen them do some things and still be able to prosper, be able to win. When you get older, it changes a little bit. But at the end of the day, the most important reason why you have to live the right way outside, besides if you believe that you're an example to others and you believe in a certain mode of behavior as a person, as a son to somebody, as a parent to somebody, as an example to somebody, and just for yourself, to be comfortable with who you are. But the most important part of it is when you get in that ring, or whatever it is your theater, your stage of action, whatever that is, on Broadway, being an actor, the camera's on, whatever it is, where the pressure comes, you have to believe and feel that you're not a liar. You have to feel that you're really that person. You get into the octagon, you got to feel like you're a Viking. You got to feel like you're a samurai. You got to feel like you're really that. And these guys do. And if you're living the wrong way outside, you can't feel that way. You can't mentally, emotionally feel that way. Because what do you feel like? You feel like I'm a liar. I'm not really that. And that is the difference. And that is where a man, and I just used the word a man like Dan Ige and Lopez, but we're talking about Ige because of the circumstances right now. But Lopez, too, fits into this, where their core strength is their character. Their character. The strength to believe, to know that you could depend on yourself because of how you live and how you commit yourself to certain ideals in life. So, in a consistent way. So for me, and look, I'm not going to name names, but you've seen some great athletes, Ken, some great fighters, and some I'm not going to even mention the name right, that are iconic, thought of as some of the greatest. And you've seen them fail and as athletically gifted as anyone, maybe better than anyone, but you've seen them fail. And a lot of times when they fail because they might come up short in this area. And Dan Ige doesn't come up short in that area. His cardio was all that, it seemed like he was training already for something. But even if his cardio wasn't at its best, and we've seen guys take fights on short notice and their cardio's not at the best. Their physicality's not at their best. It can't be. They didn't have a full camp. But yet they find a way to get it done. Core strength, true core strength, character. And that is what was on exhibit. That was what was there for everyone to see with Dan Ige. I want to make sure that everybody understands that and looks at that part of it, of why he was able to get done. And not only get it done, but say yes. To say yes, because he believed what he needed to believe. He was not a liar. He was not a guy that was doing things that would lend you to think, no, I don't have that core strength. I can't say yes. Not now. So I wanted to make sure I made that point. And as far as the breakdown, Lopez is so explosive, so athletic. What I love is that from a trainer's standpoint, from the striking, he answers fast with combination and close. Every time you throw it at him, he tries to get the last word. He'd be a guy that would win a lot of arguments where you're not getting the last word. You throw it at him, he comes right back. So he doesn't let you control momentum. He doesn't let you to control the rhythm, the theme of the fight. And he closes gaps fast. And he usually does it with more than one strike at a time, where he puts them together. And he counters well. He's a good counterpuncher. I was saying that. I was watching a fight with Chael and with Dustin and with my son. And I was saying that, and my son said, Dad, he really counters well. Lopez took him to the ground. I thought Ige there was one moment, it was crazy in the first round when Ige got taken to the... I wonder what you saw. You tell me what you saw. When Ige got taken to the ground, it was crazy. Thank goodness the referee didn't make a mistake. But the way Ige's hand was when he was trying to remove the arm, I guess from around the neck, I don't remember exactly, it almost looked like his hand tapped. And I was like, oh my God. But I kind of knew it wasn't. I said, no, this guy ain't tapping. But it almost looked like it. And I was like, oh my God, could you imagine if the referee would have, because it looked like that for a second. I don't know if anyone else even noticed that. But did you notice that? Because it was...
Yeah, I noticed it same the way you did. I was like, wow, that could have been interpreted. But those refs are right on top of it, so I assume the guy made the right call.
No, of course he did. And obviously he didn't tap. But he had him in a chokehold. And Ige escaped. So it was 1-0 Lopez. And in the second round, Ige landed a kick. But then after the kick, Lopez grabbed him and took him to the floor and to the ground and had control, So the second round, Lopez had control. He won. It was 2-0. I don't think you could argue that. But the third round, wow. A good round striking for Ige. He landed a right and then a nice hook. It was all Ige up to the 2-minute mark. Then Lopez took a shot inside, but Ige got dominant position on the top when they got inside, going to the floor, and Ige got dominant position on him on the mat and did a little grounding and pounding. It was really a big round for Ige, and he finished pounding him, doing ground and pound, and obviously for me he ran out of time. It was just a great effort by Ige. And here's the funny thing about it. Tell me if you saw it the same way. Here's the guy who takes the fight on 4 hours' notice, so you're thinking that you'd have to worry about his cardio coming up short. If that's a 5-round fight, Ige wins.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Right?
To be in that kind of condition on a whim, on a hour's notice is just crazy.
And let me ask you something. Here's a thing to debate in your head, to think about, mull over in your head. If it's a 5-round fight, from what he wins, is it because his physicality, or is it because of what I talked about, because of his mentality? But either way, he was the guy that was stronger at the end, that had no preparation, supposedly, right? No preparation. And look, Lopez took it on short notice too. Let's not forget that. But here's the guy who had it on 4 hours, and he looks much fresher and stronger and everything at the end of the third round than the other guy. So again, is that physicality, or is that mentally, or both?
Sometimes I wonder if all the BS that leads up to the fight just doesn't take it out of you so much, because we've seen this before with Michael Bisping gets the call on a day or two notice to fight Luke Rockhold and goes in and beats him and becomes the world champion. It happens so fast you don't even have time to realize whether your conditioning is on point or not. You just get in there and react on instincts. And Ige's training with the great Eric Nixick. Those guys stay in shape. Sean Strickland.
Yeah, he is a great trainer. He is a great trainer.
And they, you're in there with Strickland is a friggin' lunatic who just goes hard all the time. And when you're training around guys like that, it's hard not to just get fit from being in the same atmosphere. I almost wonder if that doesn't play a part where you don't get drained the week of. He wasn't cutting weight. He just had to roll into the arena and get ready to go.
No, that's why I bring it up. And the trainer, he also trains in Ganyu that you just mentioned. And,
Eric.
Yeah,
Eric
he's a good,
such a nice guy.
No, he's a good guy and he's a good trainer. But look, the reason I open up the door on that is because who really has the advantage? Bear with me. Obviously, the guy who's preparing, that usually would have the advantage. Or sometimes maybe it turns around to where he's at the disadvantage when it's a quick replacement. A, he prepared for a whole different style, right?
Yep.
He prepared for, I know the other guy didn't have time to prepare for nothing, but okay. But this guy actually could hurt him because he prepared for a specific style. And mentally, there could be a let-up. He loses focus. He doesn't go in there in an urgent state the way he normally would, where he's thinking, that it's going to be an easier night. Kind of like what happened with Ryan Garcia and Ryan Garcia in his last fight when he pulled off the big upset with Haney, where with all the craziness going on, Haney and his father, they couldn't help but think they were going to have an easy night. So mentally, they're letting up. Even if they don't want to, they're letting up. They're changing their gears in a different kind of thinking.
And hopefully other people saw that 3-pound weight miss. At some point, you have to say, no, that's BS. You're not going to cut weight. We're not having the fight because look at what happened. That could have been the difference.
And then, of course, we now we got the PEDs that are part of it. Let's be honest, that's part of it now. We gotta put that down and give Haney credit that he even got through the fight with being hurt and concussed the way he was. But it definitely changed things because Haney fought different. He fought like he's going to go in there and knock the guy out, and that's not Haney. Haney don't fight that way. Haney's a counterpuncher. He controls distance. He's defensive-minded. He's cautious-minded. And he went in there like he's just going to go get rid of the guy. And again, his mindset changed. And so you wonder, when it's a last-minute replacement, we always think the edge goes to the guy that had a full camp. But in some ways, it could be a detriment in those cases because what we just touched on, he's prepared for a specific style. He mentally might start having a let-up, thinking, okay, this is going to be easier, even though you should never have a let-up. We're human. They're human. It happens. And I'll tell you another thing. The guy coming in doesn't have to have the mental pressure for the last 2 weeks, the last week, the last 6 days of having trouble sleeping at night, of going to bed with it on his mind.
The sleep is so important. It's the most important performance enhancer, sleep.
Yeah, wearing him out mentally, just on him, that the pressure of knowing that that he's got this fight. The other guy doesn't have to deal with that. He escapes that. He escapes that mental drain. It's a drain. He escapes that. So in a lot of ways where we look at those quick changes at the last minute and we look at the advantage always being the guy that had a full camp, there's a reason why a lot of times you see the great upsets in those cases for a myriad of reasons and all the reasons I just touched on. So anyway, at the end of the day, Iggy, if it's 5 rounds, he looks like he's dominating the last 2 rounds. I mean, that's what it looked like. But either way, just a tremendous effort by Iggy. Just a great effort by both guys. You gotta take your hat off to the UFC too, that they always find a way to not let you down. If a fight pulls out in boxing like that, you're not gonna get that kind of replacement at that kind of caliber, that kind of level. But the UFC always seems to, and there was so many fights that started with Conor McGregor, obviously, that was the headline, but there was so many changes in this card, and to still be able to have the wherewithal to come up with the level of card they do, it is, you got to take your hats off to the UFC organization.
Everything about it, the production, the crowd is always lively. They always have a friggin' A-list celebrity row. Everything about it is just an awesome event. I was telling someone the other day, we were talking about the best events to go to. I said, until you've been to a UFC pay-per-view card down low on the against the octagon, like nothing in the world compares to it, in my opinion. Not the Super Bowl, World Series, nothing. It's just the sporting event of like the day. It's incredible. So exciting. Action-packed. I love that they keep the fights coming. There's very little downtime. Occasionally, if in the prelims there's some early stoppages, you might get a little delay in between the prelims and the main. But once that main event starts, the train's rolling. One fight's over, next one's coming. Those little things make a huge difference when you're watching on TV, or especially if you're in the arena. So shout out to the UFC. Not that they need any more kudos, but they always do it right.
They also have Bruce Buffer.
He's the best.
He really is.
If you watch him, Teddy, before he announces, he's bouncing off the cage, he's stretching his quads. He's an entertainment.
Crazy. I know.
It's crazy. I love it, though.
It's really, he's something. And I'm getting a little, hey, the fans out there, you agree with me. Maybe you obviously don't agree with me, whatever. But sometimes I try to speak for you. I try to put something out there for you guys, only thinking, if I'm thinking it, I'm wondering if you are. You know what I mean? And I put it out there, even when sometimes it puts me in a tough. I could have left it alone. Just leave it alone, and I would have leave it alone, and I would have had no grief. Nobody coming after me saying, "Oh, Teddy," you know. But I don't leave it alone. If I think that it's something that's bothering me or something that's making me think a little bit about it, it could be something that maybe you're thinking about. So I mention it. I'm getting a little tired. I know they're all trying to make a living. I know they're all trying to make a name. I know they're all trying to be the next Michael Buffer, right? Whatever. And they're all trying to come up with their signature thing. But I'm getting like worn out with these different ring announcers. It seems like there's a different flavor every other week. You know, it's like going into an ice cream store. There's a million flavors. I mean, no more just strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, the good, solid standbys. No, now you got coconut custard, you got
moose
tracks, you got cheesecake. Yeah, I mean, cheesecake ice cream. I mean, if I want cheesecake, I have a cheesecake. I don't want cheesecake ice cream. All right? But anyway, everything is out there. Sam's laughing. Everything is, and then it's like these Johnny-come-lately ring announcers. It's like every other week there's a new one out there, and they're screaming something new and some kind of new thing.
I thought I was the only person that noticed this.
Right, Ken? And it's like...
You know what the problem is? When you get it wrong, it's so terribly wrong. Yeah, it's just like so... It's painful to watch. You're like, ooh, you swing and a miss.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You should have just said,
just announce the fighters.
In this corner, Ken Rideout. That's it. Yep. Bang, bang. You go home. You're good. You're clean. You're good. But man, they're all trying to top the other one. They're all trying to reinvent the wheel. They're all trying to be discovered. I mean, I'm waiting to see one of them on one of these TV shows where you got, where they're singing, You Got Talent, or where you know those shows where they do all kinds of crazy things now. It's not just singing.
America's Got Talent.
Yeah, and they go in there and the guy's, he's whistling through his toes. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what he's doing. He's putting his toes to his mouth and he's whistling instead of with his fingers. You don't know what you're going to wind up saying. I'm waiting one day to see one of these ring announcers show up and give his version of what he thinks is, the new can't miss ring call.
The other problem that it causes is it cheapens the broadcast. If you've got like a real production on a major network and then you've got like a budget announcer, and like you said, I know they're trying to just do their thing, but as the producer, you got to be like, you know what? Skip all the BS. Just announce the fighters. I don't want to take attention away from the event, because now it's like, dude, is that guy serious? That was the craziest announcement ever. It's so like scripted. It's like just so inauthentic. The screaming.
You're right. And you know what is predictable? You just know it's gonna. They're just trying to top something that they heard the last one, whoever, and it's going to be just over the top, because it's not like it's that creative. It's like it's so forced.
Yes.
It's like
That's it. It's forced.
Let me see if I can, if I can throw something new in there, just a little different from what the guy last night did that I heard, and now this is gonna top that. Man, it gets hard to listen to after a while. But anyway,
I like the old school guys like from the Raging Bull movie and like the old like 40s and 50s where the microphone comes down from the roof in Madison Square Garden and the guy grabs it, announces it in a deep voice and moves on. But it's not a performance. It's just an announcement.
Yeah.
He's just naming the fighters. It's not screaming and yelling and doing cartwheels.
No, I agree. And it's got class. It's got, it's enough.
Exactly.
It's enough. But talking about enough, this Pereira, wow. Pereira and Jiri Prochazka, wow.
Jiri was lucky to get out of the first round. Got sat down with the beautiful, I think it was a straight left, 13 seconds into the second and couldn't,
Ken,
crazy shot.
I've been lucky enough to have been up with Custom Auto for 7 years up in Catskill where we had all the fight tapes of all the great fighters back in the day because Bill Caton and Jim Jacobs owned Big Fight Incorporated. So any fight we wanted to see, we got. And if I wanted to see, I told them, they put it in the mail 2 days, 3 days later, I got it. And so I saw years of 6-inch punches, 6-inch hooks, 6-inch right hands from the great, great Joe Louis. And then I thought I saw it all. I thought I saw the shortest punches you could ever see until the other night where I saw Pereira throw a 3-inch left hook. Yeah, a 3-inch left hook that dropped Jiri just at the bell. Literally at the bell. And
it sat him right down. It was like no question about it. It was no slipping, no tangled feet. This was a boink right on the chin, and down goes Frazier. Sat him right down.
Accurate. Beautiful. He never saw it. 3 inches. 3 inches. This man is different. This man is special with that. Yeah. And listen, I know that everyone's saying how crazy it is. He's basically, it was in the pros. I touched on it early in the opening, but if it was in the pros, we'd be saying the guy's an amateur. The guy didn't even get any experience, and he's doing it. But he did have that kickboxing background, that pedigree, and that is serving him. That is serving him in his striking and obviously his kicking. So we can't discount that.
The leg kicks are what keeps everyone off balance. I mean, he was kicking those legs. Whew.
But he has
early with those kicks.
But he has climbed the ladder. Even with the kickboxing background, to come into the UFC and beat the guys he's beaten so fast, it makes you really look and say, wow, this guy could wind up being the greatest of all time. Like I told, and I don't want to see it's really getting to the point like with some of the boxers where they clean out a division. I don't want to see them anymore with these regular guys. I want to see them with only whoever the top guy might be. And it's getting to that point with Pereira where I just want to see him with John Jones. I just want to see him with Espinal. I just want to, gotcha. I mean, it's getting that crazy. And I know that's not fair for me to say and to demand that or to call for that. It's not fair. But that's how he's that good. He's that good.
The one thing we have to point out, though, with his performance is it highlights just how friggin' good Israel Adesanya is that he knocked that guy out. And not a flash knockout in the first round. Like, I think he got him in like the third round or late in the fight. And after going rounds with him and coming back from a loss, like, my God, Israel Adesanya is just like, whew.
Well, for Adesanya to... Adesanya, who's great, who I love, for Izzy to overcome the mental stuff that he had to overcome, not only being knocked out by Pereira when he was winning the fight all 5 rounds, and then he gets knocked out in the 5th round, but he had been knocked out in the amateurs in the and beaten in the kickboxing and beaten twice by him, once by knockout. So to overcome that baggage, to overcome that. And then to late in the fight or a little later in the fight to knock him out the way he did. But I tell you what that was. That was Izzy being Izzy and being great in the areas I just gave him credit for. Mentally, to be able to overcome what he had to do to give himself a chance to win. and having a plan to do what he needed to do and knowing what that was and having the ability to stay calm when he was up against the ropes or up against the fence and stay calm with this monster in front of him, this guy who had knocked him out. And that was a matter of live by the sword, die by the sword. Because Pereira lives by the left hook to a certain extent. And he when you live by the left hook, you better be careful that you're not leading in front with somebody who's a top caliber guy who might make you die by the sword. And that's what happened in that fight with Pereira. With Izzy. That's what happened. He threw the left hook. He got a little carried away with himself with the left hook. He took for granted he's just going to throw it, and he threw it right in front as Izzy was against the fence. And Izzy was ready. Izzy's eyes were ready. His mindset was ready.
Able to do that.
Yeah, and he led with the left hook in front. And Izzy, I always say, straight beats round. Straight beats round. And he beat him with a straight right hand right inside that left hook, knocking out Pereira, where Pereira is usually the guy landing the punch that nobody saw. He got knocked out by the right hand that he didn't see inside that left hook. He lived by the sword. He died by the sword. But the sword has been doing pretty good lately. And I got to give credit to Jiri. I don't think anybody has touched on this. But he gets dropped with that. Like I said, I've seen 6-inch punches from the great Joe Louis. This was a 3-inch left hook. He gets dropped right at the bell. He got concussed. He never recovered from that. And then he gets knocked out with the head kick in the next round right away. He was still hurt. He was. That's a case where maybe a doctor should have went into the corner, take that little flashlight there. A lot of people don't know what it's for. What it's for is you look into the guy's pupils and see if they're dilating. Yep. See if he's there with us. See if he's concussed. See if he's okay. The eyes will tell. The eyes will tell you. And
even if the doctor doesn't, Herb Dean's got to recognize that the guy just got knocked down, and when he comes out to start the second and he catches that head kick, all the damage he took when he went down was probably unnecessary.
No, 100%.
He probably could have just stepped in right there.
And he's one of the great refs.
Situational awareness. Yeah, he's great.
But he was a little late there. He was a little, and it was scary. He was the guy. To your point, the guy gets knocked out with a head kick, a kick. The strongest muscle in your body, the legs, gets knocked out with the bone of the leg, and gets knocked out, and then you got to be on it right away. You can't let him take those shots.
That's right.
That he took
afterwards.
Be aware. Yeah, thank God. Something serious didn't happen. But that's why in that business, in my business, in boxing too, but the referee has to be sharp, has to be ready. You don't want it too soon, but you definitely don't want it too late. They got to be in position. There's a way of doing things. If you're a waiter in a restaurant, there's a way of waiting on tables if you do it the right way. If you're a referee, there's a way of refereeing. Well, there's an expertise to it. There's a training that goes with it that you have to adhere to. That you have to be prepared to adhere to. Being in position, being ready. All of that, noticing body language, all of that. Anyway.
Those are big. That's a good point. I mean, people get critical of referees in all the sports frequently, but if you actually think about what they're doing, in any sport, there's a ton of experience and knowledge that you have to be making split-seconds decisions, and I guarantee Herb Dean would acknowledge, I was late getting in on that one, but he's one of the good ones, and look, people make mistakes. People miss calls all the time, and that was a little bit late, but I have faith in Herb Dean, and to your point, it's like, I don't know how to tell you how to do it right, but we all know what it looks like when it's done wrong.
No, 100%. And I tell you, he's a great, I always talk about it's one thing to have power, but you have to have a delivery system to land that power. Otherwise, it doesn't have a lot of meaning. You have to have a delivery system. Ernie Shavers knocked walls down with the right hand. He didn't win a world title. He didn't win a world title. Now, I know there was guys like someone named Muhammad Ali and George Foreman around that kind of made it a little hard. If he was around in a different era, maybe he lands that right hand. But you have to have more than just power. You have to have a way, a means to deliver it to the target in a consistent manner. And that is really the package that makes Pereira so great. The power and the delivery system. He's a great natural counterpuncher. He lures you in. He even lets you get a little full of yourself, a little confident where you're throwing, maybe thinking you're having success. He even does things wrong. I don't know if he does them on purpose, even to lure you in, like a spider luring a beetle into a spider web. But I don't know. But you can catch him, and Jiri did in the first fight. He was having success catching him going back, straight back. And Pereira goes straight back. You can catch him going straight back. But God forbid you go back with him and you do it a little too much or from too far, or you throw one extra punch that you shouldn't throw and you're there too long. You're done. And so he's got that flaw that actually turns out to work for him, where he'll go straight back, he'll invite you in, you'll start to get confidence that you can catch him going back, and you're right, you can. And then next thing you know, you went too far, and he catches you with that show closer, that short left hook, because you were invited in, you saw the opportunity, you saw the flaw, he's right there in front of you, you're going back with him, and then bang, you don't see anything else. You don't remember anything else. You wake up in the locker room after time where they have to tell you what happened. Yeah, you got caught. We carried you back to the locker room. And it's really it's quite a thing. It really is, that the guy will have this flaw technically going straight back, but is it really a flaw? After a while you start to think, is it really a flaw? Is it part of his cerebralness and his understanding that he will get guys to come in, he will get guys to follow him, and he trusts that he'll get the better of it, that he'll land the left hook before they're going to land anything meaningful. And so far, he's proven himself right. So, and the thing with Jiri, his greatest strength is his greatest weakness. He's aggressive, he's unorthodox, he's gutsy, he throws from all different angles. But he gets over-aggressive. He reaches with some of his aggression. And when he does that, that's what I mean by his aggression. It'll win fight for him, but it also get him in trouble where he gives you opportunities to catch him coming. Catch him as he is coming in with that little reckless aggression. And this time, in the second round, again, I think he was concussed. I really do. But
oh, yeah. No,
to the credit of Pereira, he's known for taking your legs out, and he was doing that again with his leg kicks. Extraordinary. He's really not known as much for the kicks to the head. Obviously, he can do that too. But he did do one in the first round. It didn't land. But he did one, and it caught my attention. I said to myself, I haven't seen him do that much. Wow. And then all of a sudden, he did it in the second round, and he ended the fight. But if you noticed, when he did that kick to the head that knocked out Jiri's arms were going down as though he was anticipating something low. His hands...
Oh, now, by the way, I got something for you along those lines. Did you see this? You were traveling, so you may not have seen it. They were showing Jiri warming up and defending low kicks, and every time he did, he dropped his hands a little bit. And they interviewed Pereira's coach afterwards, one of the Brazilian guys, and he said, yeah, we saw that, and Alex did too. And we said as a team, watch how every time you throw a low kick, he's dropping his hands. So in the fight, he set up like he was going to throw a low kick and then went up high and went right over his hands. So essentially, they're saying, hey, we got that from the pre-fight montage that was up on the screen showing him warming up in his locker room. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but it's exactly what happened in the fight.
True.
And they showed the clip again, and you could see exactly what he was doing, dropping his hands every time he'd block a low kick or check a low kick. Incredible.
And that's why Pereira and his trainer are champions and so special besides their talents, because they pick up on that, their cerebralness. You got to not only be tough and physical, but you got to be smart. That's what separates guys. And they showed that. And I believe that they did pick up on that. But that's why I brought this up. I noticed his hands were going down low. Now, I think part of it, he was also a little gone. But his hands were definitely going down low, anticipating a kick low. And it goes to show you, that old saying, your reputation precedes you. The thought of those terrifying leg kicks that can disable you, the thought of that had Pereira thinking so much about I gotta block them that it made him open to a head kick. I mean, really, he was so cognizant of that. He was so concerned with those that he's going down. And again, to Pereira's credit, he sees that, he understands. Okay, I got his respect on the kicks low, and he's looking for them. Now I'm going to switch it up and use that to land high, and that's what good fighters do. That you think those things out, and you set people up that way, and he set them up. And I just, obviously that was the end of the fight, but I think part of the end of the fight was before the bell rang. That stand down. That was a stand down of stand downs. That was the stand down of all time. That was the stand down of the century. And I was waiting for Clint Eastwood to come out. You know what I mean? in one of those Western movies with that music. Rob, can you get that music for me? That Clint Eastwood music with the Westerns.
And a cloud of dust, and a little cloud of dust swirling between them.
Yeah, just that music.
So good.
I was waiting for that music, and really, for two gunslingers to just walk towards the center of the ring, because that's what that was. That's what that emblazoned. That's what that set up and looked like. And
to your point, it really was sincere. Like, you didn't get the impression they weren't like posturing or BSing. You were like, oh my God, there's two big men about to try to hurt each other.
And it has an impact. It's the fight before the fight. 75% of this is mental. And when you have a guy staring at you like that, Roberto Duran, when he was lightweight champ, he broke down a lot of guys before the punch was ever thrown. Where I remember one guy saying afterwards, that guy is the devil. I looked into his eyes, and they were coal black eyes. There was nothing behind them. He's the devil. They were bottomless, hollow eyes, and it can affect somebody. It really can. I mean, you got a guy saying he's the devil. I ain't betting on that guy. I'm not putting money on him in a fight, no matter how good he might be. And when you look into Pereira's eyes, I wonder how many of these fighters see what the fighters saw when they looked into Duran's eyes. They see something they don't want to see. And he backs it up. That's what really makes it work and impact. Because then he goes out and gets these results. He makes it real. Matter of fact, I know it affects him. I know it affects Jiri. Because Jiri said before this fight, he was very honest, which was very unusual to hear a fighter talk about such things in that honest way that really could be deemed as a weakness that your opponent could take advantage of, which I would have, and I think Pereira did. And if I'm the trainer, I know I'm making my fighter aware of that. And what I'm pointing at, what I'm talking about, Ken, is that days before the fight, in the lead-ups, in the press, during an interview, Jiri said that he thinks that Pereira puts spells on you. That
he was going to use shamanic magic from his shaman in Brazil.
That he puts spells. And he would wish that he would just fight him straight up without the spells. When you
Teddy, the craziest part is I think he was serious.
No, he was. He was. It's not crazy. He was. And listen, when you got a guy thinking and believing that you're putting, besides you got a hell of a left hook and a hell of a kick, but when you got a guy that is making you think that he's putting spells on you, that he's putting spirits, and he's attacking you with spirits, and he's in control of spirits, you got a problem. And I said to my guys out there that when I heard that, I said, I don't think Jiri can win this fight. Because Pereira's in his head. He really thinks that besides worrying about his kicks and his punch, that he's got an advantage, an unfair advantage of using spirits, and he's asking him, don't use them, please. Just fight me.
It does. It almost seems like it's like a skit from Saturday Night Live, but it reminds me of the fighter you used to have, Benitez, Wilfredo Benitez. Didn't he have some sacrificial chickens in a jar or something to that effect?
I trained camp? Benitez. I was only 22 years old.
I love this story.
I trained him because the great Customato and Jim Jacobs trusted me, put me in a position that I never would have been in without their trust. Never. 21, 22 years old, whatever I was. Are you kidding me? Training one of the greatest fighters of all time and one of the greatest fighters of that time, Wilfredo Benitez, who won a world title at 17. Nobody's going to break that record. He beat Kid Pompele Cervantes when he was 17 years old, outdoors, in the rain, in Puerto Rico. 17 years old.
Youngest champion in history.
Will never be matched, ever. And 3-division champion. Junior welter, and then junior middleweight. 3-division champion, great, just a great fighter. And he was getting ready. He was up in Catskill with us in camp, and I was training him. And he's getting ready for the Carlos Palomino welterweight title fight in Puerto Rico outdoors to win his second title, the welterweight title. And his father, Gregorio, had sold his contract. He had a lot of bad habits, gambling, different stuff. But he had sold his contract to Jimmy Jacobs. Sold it to him. $75,000. That's what he sold it to him back in those days, which was a hell of a buy. And Jimmy Jacobs, at the time, owned Ring Magazine. And Big Fights Incorporated, everything. I think he owned Ring Magazine. But anyway, Jim Jacobs bought the contract. And, of course, Jimmy and Cus were very close. And any fighter he had, he brought to Cus. So he brought him to Cus. Cus gave him to me and said, you train him. Something happened. While we're training, because the father no longer had him, the father was unhappy, angry. And so he employed a witch in Puerto Rico. They have witches in some of these islands that the people believe in. They're voodoo witches. DC talked about it. He's from Louisiana. He said, Teddy, I know about voodoo. I know about this. He goes, yeah.
That's where Regis Prograis gets the Rougarou nickname, a fictional character in Louisiana lore. A Rougarou, like a werewolf.
So in a lot of these places, these islands, stuff, they believe in this voodoo and black magic. So Gregorio being mad at his own son now and doesn't want him to win, which is crazy, but it's part of why you could understand his situation was what it was, and he sold his son's contract to begin with. But he employs a witch from the island there to put a hex on Wilfredo. Now, the sparring partners that we have coming in and the other people that we have coming in to help, mostly his sparring partners, and he also had a trainer named Fernando with him that was like an assistant, but then I took over the training. But he was crazy, to be honest with you. But when the word got out, and he was, but when the word got out that this witch who was known, obviously she was very well known on the islands of Puerto Rico, had put a hex on Wilfredo and the camp, nobody would come. Nobody would come. And we had no sparring partners. We couldn't get sparring partners for a little while. We were having, and then of course we put calls in to try to get out. They went in other camps. We had the perfect sparring partners, and they pulled out on us. So I not only had to train him for 3 weeks, I was his main sparring partner. Sparring with him. Because we couldn't get sparring partners. The best part of the story. For that part of the training. So I'm sparring with him. I'm training him. I'm like a coach that is a
player coach.
Player coach, like basketball.
Player coach Reg Dunlop from the movie Slapshot.
Yeah. And I saw a documentary on the great. There was a movie on the great. I'm trying to remember which baseball player it was. But he was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. And towards the end of his career, he was a manager player. He managed the team, and I'm trying to remember what team it was. Was it the Dodgers? No. He managed
I think
the
Bill
team.
Russell did that late in his career, too.
Yeah, he did that.
Bill Russell was a player coach.
Yeah. But this was, and it was a basketball. I think it was Lenny Wilkins did it as a basketball coach in the NBA. But this was
crazy.
This was one of the greatest baseball players. I think it was Rogers Hornsby, and he was managing and playing at the same time, and I think it was with the Dodgers. I believe it was with the Dodgers, and I think they even beat the Yankees in a World Series while he was manager player. But anyway, I had to do that for 3 weeks and train him till we got guys in there. The right guys in there. And I went into his room. Because you got to have the guy mentally right. And you could see there was something that wasn't quite right that he was worried about. It turns out that he was worried about this hex that got, put on him by this famous witch in the island of Puerto Rico. So Cuz told me, you got to get through to this guy. This is your job to make sure you get that out of his head. Otherwise, he can't win the fight. So he started doing better. And then I talked to him about it, but I was wondering if it was me that made him better. It wasn't me. I went into his room one day, and I looked up in the closet. And in the closet, I saw a bottle. And I reached up, I took the bottle, and there was a dead chicken in the bottle, floating in the bottle. And I told Cuz, I said, Cuz, he's got a dead chicken in a bottle up in his closet. What the? He goes, leave it alone. He goes, that's why he's doing better. He got a hold of another witch, and the other witch gave the remedy. Gave what's the word when like
antidote?
He gave the antidote. This was like if you get bit by a snake, you have to have an antidote for the venom that might kill you.
Yeah.
This was the antidote for the witch's spell. It was the chicken in that bottle from another witch that he believed had more power than this witch. So, long story short, he started looking real good. I thought it was my talks. Cuz told me, no. I'm sure your talks were good, Ted, but it was the chicken. It was really the chicken that really got him right. It was that dead chicken that was told by the witch. That's what did it. So he went over to Puerto Rico. He went Fort Palomino outdoors, and he won the welterweight title. So I understand about this stuff, and it's real. It's real because it's in the mind. And
if you believe that's your reality, then it might as well be true scientifically because you believe it wholeheartedly, and they clearly both did.
And Jiri believed it, and you could just you just know it. He was honest. He said he was worried about it. He was concerned about it, but that I just want to. There was only one round and then a few seconds in the second round. But that deteriorates you. That gets you ready for the knockout. This is what I mean by that. I'll make this analogy. You have a great chef the chef don't just put the meat on the grill or in the stove. He tenderizes it. He gets it ready. He does things to it. He starts tendering. He puts spices in it. He does things to it to get it ready for the oven. And then he puts it in the oven and it cooks. Well, Pereira's stare is that chef tenderizing the beef. He's getting it ready for the stove. He's getting it ready for the oven. And then he puts it in the oven. And that his staring is what the chef does with the tenderizing. Getting that person ready to be cooked. To be cooked. I can't say it in a plainer way, where he's taking something out of him. That stare is relieving some of the confidence, some of the belief right there before the first punch is ever thrown. And not everybody has the capacity to do that. And not every other opponent will allow it to be done. I get that. But Duran, he did it. Sonny Liston did it. George Foreman did it. Mike Tyson did it at a certain point in his career. They all had those points where, believe me, there were nights where their opponent got tenderized before the first bell.
That's a good way to describe it.
Ever rang. And Pereira tenderizes guys because you, just like the fighter who said, I looked at Duran and the man's the devil. There was nothing there. There was nothing. It was black. It was a hole. I felt like I was fighting somebody that there's nothing, that there's a hole in his head. There's a hole in his eyes. You start getting a guy to think that way, that guy has an extra problem, more than he already had going into the ring. So that was at play. That was definitely at play. And then, of course, that short 3-inch left hook was at play. And then, of course, being smart enough to know that he already had him thinking about the leg kicks. He's going down to defend the leg kicks. I'm going to throw a head kick. And sure enough, he never sees it. And it's lights out. I don't want to, again, he is so scary right now as a fighter. I only want to see him with something else that's scary. I
think it would be irresponsible for the UFC to put him in with anyone other than a top contender. He's going to kill somebody. He's so dangerous.
And you got to remember, he took this fight with no training, supposedly. I mean, I know.
That's right. When the McGregor-Chandler fight fell out, they got him in there probably, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Both of them took it on.
4 fights in 337 days. The only person to do it faster at that level was McGregor, who did it in 336 days. I just saw this stat on Twitter. Crazy. Maybe it was 4 title fights. I'll have to check, but it was like whatever it was. He had 4 fights in less than a year. Yeah, incredible event. You got anything else on UFC? You want to jump over? There's a couple big fights to talk about. No, not necessarily big, but there's a couple meaningful boxing matches that we should cover.
No, 100%, Ken. We have to. And you know something? I touched on it early, and I'll get it out of the way now. I said, well, we're only going to cover 2 boxing fights that I think are meritable to cover. But I know people out there, some of you just want me to cover, want us to cover everything. As I said, I was up 3 a.m. watching these fights for you guys, so I could talk about them when I got back from Vegas. The ones that we're not going to go into that did take place was Robesi Ramirez, who's a hell of a fighter, 2-time former champ, just lost his title to Rafael Espinoza, who I love, and who looked unbelievable in his first defense. But Robesi Ramirez, 2-time gold medal, 2-time gold medalist from the Olympics. He had a one-sided slaughter over Benitez. It's funny we're talking about Benitez, but this was not Wilfredo Benitez. Benitez is 21-3, and those 3 losses those 3 losses are all by knockout. So he got knocked out for the 3rd time in his career. Lopez, he just played with him. I mean, pot-shotted, counter-punched, finally caught him with an unbelievable uppercut. But just, just basically did whatever he wanted with him. And Benitez a game guy, but just different level, in front of you, not hard to figure out. And Ramirez figured him out with the uppercut, with counter punches, with pot shots, just a higher level fighter. So anyway, that was the one, and that's as deep as I'm going to go into that one. And then the other one was Sonny Edwards, 2 former world champions. Sonny Edwards, 21-1. 4 knockouts, so he's not a puncher, but he's a terrific boxer against Adrian Curiel, who's 24-6-1, also a former champion, only 5 knockouts. Sonny Edwards outboxed him. Sonny Edwards has a very difficult style, unless you're Bam Bam Rodriguez. Otherwise, and he puts pressure on, and he got to Edwards, and he went to the body. Shows you how good Bam Bam Rodriguez is, which we're going to talk about in a little while in his fight against iconic Estrada. But Sonny Edwards just boxed, used his legs. A lot of people don't like his style, not the most exciting, but it's very effective. He uses the ring. He uses every inch of the ring. He pot shots you on the outside, counter punches you, keeps you off balance. Does a little Willie Pep on you. Willie Pep, the Will of the Wisp from the 40s. One of the greatest featherweights of all time, him and Sandy Sadler. But anyway, he wound up winning a 9-round technical decision over Adrian Curiel, who was pressing the fight all night, trying to get in, spots getting in, going to the body, trying to break down Edwards. But Edwards' legs kept him free, did a good job keeping distance, giving angles, keeping Curiel from really getting the geography he needed in a consistent manner to be able to win the fight. To do the things he needed to do to win a fight. But 9th round technical decision because Edwards had gotten a terrible clash, a bad gash from a head clash in the 6th round. So the fight was stopped at the beginning of round 9. And the scores was 90-82, 88-84, and 87-85. I don't know how they go from 90 to 82 and then 88 to, 87, 85. All these guys, they all see different fights. These judges, it's sometimes it just makes you scratch your head. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a hard one to get right. Edwards, like I said, Sonny Edwards wins the 9-round technical decision over Curiel. And let's go into these fights.
We'll get into we'll cover Teofimo, Lopez, and Steve Claggett, and then we'll end with a potential candidate for Fight of the Year with Bam Rodriguez and Estrada. But before we do, Thursday night, we had a 10-7 beatdown, technical knockout, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. They're saying Biden's trainers might be thrown in jail for even putting a candidate like that into the ring. Very dangerous for Biden to be in there with a puncher. But my God, I don't know if you saw that debate, but all I could think was someone throwing the towel, for Christ's sake.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking about the late great, and he was a friend of mine. The late great Mills Lane would have stopped it. You know what I mean? That's all I could think of.
I don't care what your politics are, Teddy. When you see something like that, that's the only reason I brought it up, is like, guys, we all have eyes. Like, what are you doing? This guy needs care, and you're parading him out there like
shame on those people. Shame on them.
Shame. Like there's
including his family. I'm sorry, and
especially his family.
I'm sorry.
And like I said, I don't care what your politics are. You can't be on board with this. You wouldn't hire him to run your company. Not in that state. It's very sad. But I digress. Let's cover Teofimo Lopez gets a relatively easy win over Steve Claggett. You know what I noticed, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts here, is I feel like at times Lopez fights to the level of the opponent. Like I feel like
up or down. I've said that many times. He fights up or down to the level, and he does. He does. Well, you know what? You hope he does, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. You hope he does. Because he has a lot of off nights. I didn't think this was an off night. By the way, I'm not one of the people that were knocking him. And I know why you're bringing this up, because a lot of people are knocking this performance. I'm not one of them. I thought he looked good. He's got flaws defensively. There's some technical things he could be tightened up with that he could do better. But he showed, and it was a different level of talent. He was fighting a guy 38-7-2 in Claggett, and who's 35 years old. So everything was chosen for him by Top Rank, for the reasons they do. He's their guy. But I'll tell you, Claggett is a tough, determined guy. He's not a puncher, but he just keeps coming. And I thought Lopez showed how talented he is, showed the difference of talent, his quickness, his ability to put punches together when he wants to his ability to show some power. I don't think he was looking to show power. I thought there were too many times he was just touching a guy. He could have maybe put a little bit more mustard on some of his punches sometimes, but he was just trying to I know what he was doing. He was touching him and then trying to finish with a hard punch and catch him that way. Yep. I did think that if he backed the guy up, which is, the guy's coming forward, if he would have just stayed on him a little bit more, there were times he had him hurt, I think he would have finished him. As tough as Claggett is, and the commentators would just talk about how tough, and I get it. But when he hurt him with that uppercut, if he would have just put something on top and concentrated on stepping to the side of him instead of going out, where he got caught when he went out, because he goes out, that's one of his technical flaws. You can catch him. He stands straight up in front. He stops right in front of you. You can hit, and he did. He got caught some shots. Not big, giant shots, but he got caught some shots. But then again, he's fighting a guy who's throwing more punches than most people will ever throw. He's throwing 1 million punches. And the way I looked at it was that it's kind of, if you're in a swamp with mosquitoes, you're gonna get mosquito bites. Even if you put some Raid on, even if you put on Raid all over your body, you're still gonna get some mosquito bites if you're in a swamp. And he was in a swamp with a guy that fights and makes an environment like a swamp. Full of mosquitoes. That's how this guy fights. He makes an environment like a swamp, where it's muggy, where there's mosquitoes, where there's gnats, where he's never leaving you alone. He makes it that kind of environment. And like I said, you're going to get some bites. So he got a few bites. There's no doubt. You can see some swelling. And the corner of Teofimo, they never use an end swell. I mean, you can see his eyes were swollen up at the end. Maybe part of that's because of his bone structure, but still, I mean, use an end swell, put some ice on him. But he didn't get hit big shots, but this guy's not a big puncher. This guy's just he's a mosquito guy. If Marvin, the great Marvin Hagler was around, he would have called him Steve the Mosquito, like he called Vito the Mosquito. Vito the Mosquito. Vito, what am I thinking about? The middleweight champ who Hagler fought twice. Fought a draw with him, the Antifermo. Vito the Mosquito Antifermo. But at the end of the day, I was not one of the naysayers of the performance of Teofimo. He showed me explosiveness, talent when he needed to or wanted to. He showed me speed. He showed me athleticism. He showed me the ability to be creative when he wanted to, the ability to use his legs, the ability to sit in a pocket, do whatever he could do what he wanted with this guy. To me, sometimes it was almost like a sparring session, with a very game sparring partner, but like a sparring session, like he could just almost practice things, do whatever. I want to counter a little bit. I want to back the guy up a little bit. I want to sit down on one big power shot a little bit. I want to work on that. I want to work on my jab a little bit. I'm taking nothing away from Claggett, but he is 38-7-2, 35 years old, and he's a guy that's one-dimensional, a guy that just does one thing. It's not nothing. Lopez, besides being more talented, he's more creative. There's no creativity to a guy like Claggett. It's just what it is. He's going to come and he's going to throw punches at you, and he's just going to keep doing it. unless you just make him stop doing it. Otherwise, you're just going to keep doing it. He's a very game guy. But I have to admit, sometimes it's getting to a point where some of Teofimo's outfits and ring walks are more competitive than the fights, or more exciting than the fights. I mean,
That's what I would say too.
They're reaching too hard with some of these wardrobes and ring walks. I mean, to fight the kind of guys they're fighting, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Like I'm looking at this guy, he's 38-7-2, game guy, Claggett, 35 years, and you got to put on all this show before this? No, I don't know. I just want to see. Instead of seeing that tuxedo and all that stuff, I want to see you sit down on the uppercut, and when you land the uppercut, because to me, if I'm in the corner, there was a spot where I might have said to him, "Look, you can't miss this guy. He gets insulted if you miss him, right? He's like Mickey Duff would say, it's harder to miss him than it is to hit him. So when a guy's coming at you, you catch him with uppercuts all night. So sit down on a really, really hard left uppercut and then a real hard right hook on, or it would be a right uppercut, right? I'm thinking I'm making him a southpaw, which I shouldn't be making him a southpaw. So just sit down on your uppercut, and then put the hook on top of it. Catch him the big uppercut, and then put the big shot on top. Catch him too hard instead of one hard punch, because he shook him a couple times with the uppercut. But I think that if he would have had it in his mind to land, to again land the uppercut, the right uppercut with the power punch, land the right uppercut, and then sit down on a left hook right behind it, I think he had a chance to get rid of him. And then he also had the option, if he backed him up and just kept the flow going. I don't know how many of those shots, as tough as he is, Claggett could take. But it's not easy with a guy like that to mentally be ready to back him up, because and know that he might still be there. But back him up, because he can't really do anything if you're backing him up, because his whole thing is coming forward. He don't know any other gear. He's not ready for any other gear. You back him up, and he's got a problem. To me, I would have done two. There's three things I would have thought of. One was uppercut, put two hard punches. Don't hit him with just the uppercut and shake his legs. Have another punch, a big punch behind it. See if he can take two of those hard punches, or even three. And I don't know that he could. The other thing I would have done is try to back him up in spots and keep it going and see if he can handle that. But the third thing, when he got finished his combinations, Lopez, and there's technical things he could be tighter at, but when he gets, and he's a very talented guy, and again, I'm not knocking him for I thought there was good things to that. I really do. First of all, his condition was great. His condition was tremendous. This guy was all over him like a cheap suit. I mean, this guy covered him like a blanket. And he never took a deep breath, Lopez. And he had to keep fighting to keep the guy from staying on him, to keep the guy off him. He was always in control. When he did flash those combinations, they were beautiful. There was speed, there was snap, there was power when he wanted to be. There was good leg movement. So I was impressed with Lopez. He reminded me of why we loved him so much when he was coming up, that he is that talented. He reminded me, he does have that kind of talent. But I agree with what you said. He doesn't always show it. He sometimes fights up or down. And what I started to say when you said that is the best version of what you hope it is. Because if it's not that, then you got to say we overrated him. Because there are times where he's in there with guys that are solid guys, but you expect them to dominate the guy, or you expect them to handle the guy much easier than he does. So he's either fighting down mentally, he gets down to his opposition, or up when he's up. Like when he was up for the fight against Taylor. against Josh Taylor. When he was up, he was magnificent. He was up for that fight. He was magnificent against Taylor. But then there's other fights that he's expected to have an easy time, and he makes it hard. He makes it close. He makes it even scary a little bit. So you wonder if it's a mental thing of him only being able to get up for fights that he thinks are tough. You wonder if it's that, or you wonder if he's just inconsistent, and sometimes, we might have overrated him after that win against Lomachenko. I don't think so, but I can see there being room for that thought. I can see when he has these struggles with some of these fights that he hasn't looked good, and you wonder, again, is it a mental lapse? Is it him not being up? He should be up, but is it him not being up? Or is it was seeing inconsistencies, and part of it is connected to that we overrated him? So, but he went a long way the other night to remind me that I don't think he's overrated. I think he is that talented. I really do. And I think that he does need to improve his technique in certain areas. Defensively is one of them. And I also think that his concentration, his mental his mental approach needs to be higher and better sometimes in fights. I don't know if I finished the third thing that I was going to say. So one, I would have maybe had him back him up in spots. The other would have been sit down on 2 hard punches instead of 1, because you're definitely going to catch him the first one. Put another one with. And the other thing is, after he punches, Teofimo was pulling out. That's when he got hit. Or he was standing up, maybe admiring his work, if you will, waiting to see if he hurt the guy. You should never do that. You got to move after your last punch. He's got to develop those habits. And what I would have replaced to pull it out with, Ken, and then standing up with, after he finished his combination, bang, 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 whatever it is, step to the side. Because the guy's right there. It's not like the guy is, mobile. The guy is a one-trick pony. The guy is coming straight in. His feet are only taking him one place, straight forward. So you know he's right there. You don't have to worry about trickery. You don't have to worry about him being in a different position. You throw your punches, step to the side. Now you can catch him without him being able to catch you, and you can catch him a punch he might not see.
Yep.
On the side. So those from a trainer's standpoint, those are the things. But look, I thought he won every round. I thought he did what he wanted. I thought he played with him in spots. I thought he practiced things in spots. Some of the stuff, when I talk about his mental approach, a lot of people connect to his father. Look, it's not easy having a father. They've gotten to a great place, but it's not easy having a father as a trainer. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Where maybe someone else could know something and be able to add something. But when you have a father involved, a lot of times father's not going to allow that. I mean, he's not going to allow anyone else in there to add something technically or mentally or any of that stuff. And the one thing that was a little disturbing to me, but obviously they have that relationship, it doesn't bother the fighter. Did you notice when he got in the ring and he's doing his thing and he's got this wardrobe on and they're in the ring getting ready to be announced? In the ring, like, a minute away from the bell being rung, being announced, the father was on his cell phone texting somebody. I mean, like, you don't want to see that.
You're that busy that you can't put the phone down just for the fight. I mean, it's insanity. I mean, it's insane. That's all I can tell. I mean, you'd have to be slightly insane to be distracted by a huge title fight and you're texting with someone. Like, what could be that important at that time of night on a Saturday? It's just like, it asks a bunch of other questions that are so crazy.
Now, the one thing that I thought the commentators did a good job, but I think the one thing I disagree with, it wasn't really the commentator. I forget who it was. I think it was the guy who's outside, like, who was it? Was the writer? What's his?
Kriegel?
Yeah, it might have. Not really a commentator. I mean, he's not a boxing guy, but he made a point, and to me, it sounds good. But that's the problem. It's cliche. Sometimes it's real, but it could be cliche. And to me, a boxing guy wouldn't use it in that case. He said that Claggett, trying to give him credit, and he deserved credit, is imposing his will on Lopez. And as soon as he said that, I said, no, he's not. He's trying to, 100%.
He's coming forward, but he's getting 100%, banged around all night.
But he's not imposing. Yep. When you're imposing your will, there's deterioration. You start to take something away from the guy.
We're going to talk about that exact case in the next fight about one guy imposing his will on another.
100%. That's imposing your will. That's 100%. Yep. You're right. But what was, and I didn't think it was fair to Lopez, to be honest, that say he was having his will imposed by on him from Claggett. He was not. He was trying to. He was putting pressure on, but it was almost like I said. It was just. It sounds good, like he's imposing his will on the guy. No, he's coming forward. He's being aggressive. He's getting hit a lot doing it, but he's not getting Lopez to a place where he is deteriorating him. He is not wearing him down. He is not breaking his will. He is not breaking his spirit.
Him uncomfortable.
He's not making him uncomfortable, 100%. So I thought that was false or that was wrong. But look, I look at things in a different prism. I look at things through a different lens. You spent 7 years with Customato and boxing, and you know what? You're not allowed to use cliches if they don't fit. You're just not. Because he would have said, hey, what are you talking about? Come on. You're better than that. Come on. You can't just say stuff for the sake of saying it. But he won every round for me. I don't know. One judge gave him one round, whatever. Fine. But at the end of the day, he reminded me. I'll leave it at that. He reminded me of how talented he is. And but he also reminded me of the flaws that are evident from a technical standpoint that he needs to tighten up on, and the mental part that he needs to always be at 100%. He needs to always be, that saying, DEFCON, we're going to DEFCON 5. We're going to, he needs to be at DEFCON 5 mentally, and a lot of times he's only at DEFCON 1. And what does it take him to get to DEFCON 5? Maybe only a challenge that he thinks is a challenge. Some people are that way.
Yeah. Yep. One of the, you mentioned Cuss a few times in this episode, and I think one of the things that he would probably feel proud of looking at you is that you've carried on the legacy and represented him in what he was able to teach you over the years, and kind of carry the torch to almost like the next generation. And he, I'm sure, would feel incredible pride at what you've been able to do in the sport as a trainer, as an announcer, and I just wanted to point that out since he's been brought up a few times.
No, I appreciate that. And one other thing I want to add is, and then we'll finish with this, it is hard to not get hit with a guy throwing that many punches. I make that concession. I make that, but it reminds me, Ken, and I always try to give credit when credit is due. It reminds us of how great certain guys, how special certain guys were, that we almost took for granted what they did. And one of them I was thinking about was Pernell Whitaker, Sweet Pea, that he would fight a guy like this and the guy would never touch him. Wouldn't touch him for 12 rounds. Now, he's technically much more buttoned up than Lopez, no doubt about it. And he was a gold medalist in the Olympics. He's one of the great lightweights of all time, for me. But Pernell Whitaker, it just reminded me, Sweet Pea, God bless you. God bless you up there, up in boxing heaven. But you were great. You were great, because I watched this fight with Claggett with a really talented fighter like Lopez, and Lopez is getting touched up, and it's hard not to with a guy that throws punches from the opening bell to the last bell and never stops. But you when you were in there, you'd be in there with a guy like that, and you'd come out as sweet as you went in there. Sweet Pea. You wouldn't even get touched.
I think in the setup, that's kind of what I was getting at, is that Top Rank and the matchmakers, in my mind, they put this fight on so that Lopez could highlight all those defensive skills and shine bright. And I didn't he did what he had to do, but I didn't see anything that made me go, oh my God, he's on another level like a Pernell Whitaker. I think that's what, at least I was getting. I think what some people that were disappointed with the performance were disappointed in, but he can't do what he can't do. I just don't like Pernell Whitaker was a unique guy, and I think a lot of the Lopez fans, they want him to be that, but he just isn't that because he's going to fight to a certain level, to the level of the fighter, where he's just like,
and to his temperament. He's connected.
Yes.
He's connected
Yes.
to the temperament and his mentality. That's a big part of it. Pernell was different. Pernell was all boxing. Pernell was a guy that, I mean, he could fight you. He could fight a phone booth fight for 15 rounds, and at the end of the day, you never talk to the operator. you never got connected. You never operator. And all you hear is a dial tone. And he fought that kind of phone booth fight for 12 rounds, 15 rounds, because he used to fight 15 rounds before it turned to 12. He was that technically solid. He was that good. He was that special. And look, it also every once in a while when you see this, it just reminds you, Ken, and me, of how special these guys were. And like I said, we took them for granted sometimes. And they need to get their due of how, and Mayweather falls into that, how good Mayweather was. You know, I know he still does certain things, but he's not boxing in the way that he boxed.
When he was at his best, though, it was special.
He's not, he's not an active fighter anymore. He's retired in that way. But how special, reminds you how special he was, Anyway,
well, to that end, I think we're seeing another special talent in real time, and I'm dying to get your thoughts here on Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Talk about imposing your will on a guy. Estrada is an incredible fighter, and my God, Bam Rodriguez put it on him, knocked him down in the fourth, folds him in the seventh with a vicious body shot. There was definitely no getting up. He was mean in there. He was just everything that you'd want him to be. And that's what I'm thinking when I think about Lopez. I'm like, that's the performance you want to see from the best fighters, from the top in class. And my God, Bam Rodriguez is everything about it. I was thinking of you while I was watching it, because at times I saw him invite the guy in, pull him in, and then as soon as he lunges in with a punch, Bam Rodriguez was hitting him with counters. It just looked like every boxing skill was on display in this fight, and Bam Rodriguez gets him out of this 7th round. How'd you like it?
Before we even get into it, he stopped him in the 7th round. He won every round, dropped him 1 round, except 1 round where he got dropped. I was going to come back
to the scorecards, which is just, I didn't want to take away from his win.
No, thank you.
Because it's insanity.
Ken, that's why I asked Rob. I asked Rob last night, you have to put the scorecards up. Really, we got to get rid of these judges that do this. We do. And you know that I've been working on getting a national commission. This is as criminal as it gets. I've been working on getting a national commission with Dan Donovan, with Pedro Martinez Fraga, with Keith Sullivan, lawyers, all friends, all good people, all people that are passionate about the sport. They care about the sport. And we're putting together what we have to put together. There is still a chance for the fans out there, if you care, to sign. Ken, you probably could tell me how to do it, but
there'll be a link in the show notes here. We'll link it in the podcast show notes. But yeah,
sign a petition. Sign a petition to get a national commission to get rid of this chicanery, this craziness. Really, these judges should not be allowed to be in a position to ruin someone's career, to ruin the sport.
And they tried. No shame whatsoever in scoring this. It's insanity.
Terrible. I mean, he won every round except the one he got dropped, and then he came on late in that round, but he got dropped. You could
argue he won the round aside from getting dropped and made it
But he lost a round, no problem. But then to have it where one judge, what was it? One judge had him put it out there for the fans, just so if they're not aware of it, which I'm sure they are, and I'm sure they're pissed off.
So the
like
scores, The scores were 58-54 for Rodriguez. One guy had it a draw, 56-56, and the third judge had Rodriguez down 57-56. If you saw this fight, it was a one-sided beatdown, a slaughter, save for the knockdown. But even the round that Rodriguez got knocked down, you could make a case that he came back and won the majority of the round. But even still, let's give it 10-8. That's another 6 rounds that he won every single round, 5 rounds, and 5 wins, 1 lost rounds, and obviously stopped him in the 7th. But how you get to having him down by a point in the 7th round and the way he was fighting is crazy. You don't even have to know about boxing to look at that and go like, wow, one guy's really beating the other guy up.
No, it's. I had to start with that because it's there. It's there. There's no getting around it. It's the elephant in the room. There's no getting around it. There's something wrong with our sport where you have judges that can do that. They can judge a fight this way and potentially destroy somebody, destroy their effort, destroy everything they work for, and destroy the sport and the credibility of the sport. There's no credibility when you have judges like that. None. There's no room for judges like this. There's none. And here's the real problem. What I just said should be the end of it, but it's not. These judges will be working again next week. That is why I'm trying to start a national commission, because it will never end. That is the real atrocity. I mean, that is. They will be working. After that, they should never work again. They will be working next week. They will be in a position to destroy some other scorecard and somebody else's career potentially. So something has to be done. Anyway.
But it's almost like an advertisement to the other promoters, like, hey, guys, look, I'll do anything to make sure your guy wins, including sully my reputation, show no integrity. I'll do anything. For hire. That's what the guys like LinkedIn ad should say. For hire will work for fight tickets and a suite at the MGM Grand.
Well, we had a young lion versus an old lion. That's a cliche. I talked about cliches. That's a cliche.
No, that's a good one, too. 24 and 34.
That 10-year difference. That one fits. Not only 10 years older, Estrada, and not only that, but he was in his 48th fight, and he was inactive for a year and a half. And that's a tough spot.
Good point.
That's a tough spot.
I also say it's like 10 Mexican fighter years, which is probably the equivalent of 20 years for someone else. Those guys fight so much. In such tough fights from the jump.
It's true. Like I always say, you don't judge a fighter by his age as far as chronology. You judge it by the amount of tough fights they've been in. And Estrada's been in a lot of tough fights. I mean, with one of the iconic fighters of all time, Chocolatito, Roman. 3 times. He beat him twice. Yep. He lost, I think, the first time and then beat him the next 2 times. But all great fights. All wars. He's been in many of those fights. He's a legend, Estrada. He's a legend. And Rodriguez beat him. He beat him with all those circumstances, but he beat him because Rodriguez he's real. I mean, he's a ball of energy. He's nonstop motor, but he also mixes defense with offense. He does. His trainer's doing a good job. They're really doing a good job with him. He's aggressive, but it's a controlled mayhem. It's a controlled chaos. He's always coming, but every once in a while he steps out. He comes at you with feints once in a while. He steps off he's got beautiful footwork. Subtle things that make it hard to catch him clean and give him an advantage of landing something clean where he normally wouldn't have landed it. He makes little subtle moves to the side, inside, where it's hard to catch him, but he can catch you now, something. Little subtle moves. And then he makes big moves to the side. He's got great leg work. Footwork. He's very educated, very smart, very technically solid. Like I said here, he controls range, but he always stays in range to make you feel pressure. He'll step slightly out, but then he's right back on you. Never letting... He's like holding a magnifying glass over a piece of paper, and never, or over your hand, and that heat from the sun is all condensed into one spot where you're feeling it, and it starts to burn. The magnifying glass starts to make that one ray of heat, one ray of sunshine. It starts to make it where it never goes away. It's always hitting your hand. It's always on you. You're always aware of it, and it starts to get to the point where you're more than aware of it. It's unbearable. He has a way, again, without being reckless, but it looks reckless. It looks like he's on you in a chaotic way, in a way where you can catch him easier than you can catch him, but he's not. He's that magnifying glass. He's on. He's in front of you, making you feel the pressure, making you feel the threat, making you feel the danger. It's wearing you. It's like you said earlier. This is a real case of a guy imposing his will. A real case of imposing his physicality and his will on you, where it never lets up. It never gives you a reprieve. It never gives you a rest. Even if he's not hitting you, he's close enough to make you feel like he's hitting you. Like, oh, he's not going away. It's always there. And it's controlled, and it's smart, and it's concise. He's very good at placing punches, beautiful uppercuts to the body. That's what ended the fight. But beautiful uppercuts to the head, to the body, nice combinations. He puts them together in an educated, concise way. You can catch him sometimes, but he mixes in head movement. He mixes in, like I said, he's got a nice mix. His trainer's done a good job. He's got a nice mix of offense and defense. They work beautifully together. His defense creates some of his offense. At the end, that body punch, he made the right hand miss, and he punched right in between it with the left uppercut. To the body from his southpaw position. He's young, and he's only going to get better. And you see how hungry he is. You see how eager he is to learn, to get better. You can see he's a lifer. What I mean by a lifer, he's a 24/7. He's a 365. He eats, sleeps, and drinks boxing. This is his life. And a guy like that, he's only going to get better. And he's a trainer's dream. He's a trainer's dream because he wants to get better. He wants more. He wants more because he wants to do more, because that's what he does. He fights. And nothing else. He beat a 2-division champion, like I said, an iconic fighter. Just broke him down. Going to the body, the head. He found the home for that uppercut. He used the uppercut real well. And then he showed the uppercut to the body. And the last punch, like I said, the last punch in the 7th round, he timed. He was calm in an uncalm environment. He was right there in the pocket, right there in the trenches, calm, not getting hit. And he allowed Estrada to throw a right hand. And as he threw the right hand, he knew that would create an opening. And what did he do? He put a left uppercut right underneath it, right in the spot where the right hand came from. Oh, my God. I hope people can appreciate what that is. That's the sweet science. It was beautiful. And if it was damaging, and it was effective, it left a great fighter on the canvas, not able to get up from that left hand to the liver. He used his jab. He's got a really good jab. It's a hard jab. It's an accurate jab. He keeps you from getting started. That was a big part of the fight. Yeah, the big punches. But it was really the jab that never allowed Estrada to get a rhythm. Never really allowed him to get a rhythm. Kept him discombobulated, disjointed, where he couldn't get going, couldn't get into a stream that he wanted to get into. Rodriguez has a terrific jab. Again, he's well trained. He uses the jab really well. He had some dominant rounds. He had that fourth round where he scored the knockdown, beautiful uppercut, and then he brought it up top. He landed beautifully underneath, and then he came up top and finished up top. Just smart, educated, concise combinations. Brilliant. Really brilliant. I mean, this guy, if you hear he's fighting, call me up. Let me know. Because I don't want to miss him. I don't want to miss him. The only round I gave to Estrada was the sixth round. He scored with the southpaw killer, the right hand. He did a great job. He doubled up the jab. He closed the gap. He blinded him, and he caught Rodriguez a little careless, standing in front straight, his head straight on the line, and he caught Rodriguez with the right hand, dropped him. Rodriguez not only got right up, he won the rest of the round. By the end of the round, he was taking control of the round. That's what I mean about 24/7, 365, lifer. He's all fighter. He's all fighter. He fights like a fighter. He trains like a fighter. He thinks like a fighter, and he behaves like a fighter. Right away he knew okay, this is new. I've never been down here. All right, I know what I got to do. I not only got to get up, but I got to take control again. And he did. He took control again, and he made sure that he wasn't going to get hit with that punch again because he finished the show. After that was almost the worst thing that Estrada could have done, because after that he forced Rodriguez to bring it to the next level, and he already was showing a lot of levels. But then the seventh round, he picked it up right from the beginning. You could see it. He said, "Oh no, this I'm changing to another gear now," and he did. And it was after the round he got dropped. He goes out there the seventh round. He picks it up to another level, and what does he do? He gets rid of this great fighter. So I was just so, other than the refs, I was very impressed with everything about that fight. The referees got me sick.
Other than the judge.
Not the refs, the judge. I'm sorry. Judge. The judges, I mean, those judges that had it a draw, and they need to be taking athletic greens. But I don't know if that would even help them. I don't know.
I was going to tell you, Teddy, one split second here, because one thing that the judges could do if they want to improve their mental acuity is to make sure they're getting all their vitamins and minerals, nutrients, probiotics, prebiotics, and no one does that better than Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas and take advantage of the incredible offer they're giving to our listeners only. Get 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. So even if you are judging a fight in Atlantic City, New York City, or Dubai, take your Athletic Greens with you in these convenient travel packs. It's the all-in-one green drink made from 75 whole food sourced ingredients. And as I've said before, even the healthiest diet is bound to miss some of the key vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that a healthy diet needs. Athletic Greens got you covered, and now you can travel with them in these convenient travel packs. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to take advantage of the offer, and for what it's worth, Teddy and I use this every single day. I've been taking this for years. It's the one supplement that I would never go without. It's not a sales pitch. It's a sincere representation of how I feel about this product. We used it well before they ever advertised with us. Shout out to Athletic Greens. Awesome product. Great team. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. And I know you're going to take yours now that you're back from Vegas to get your body right back on track from the jet lag.
How do you think I got here today? I was up to 3 a.m. watching fights for these fans out there that like to tear me apart at times. But I still stayed up for you anyway to watch the fights, and I had to drink some Athletic Greens to do it. So that I'll finish with one thing, Ken, that we didn't talk about before the show, but it hit me. And I don't, the fans, I know that if I didn't touch on this, I know it's going to be in the, whatever that stuff is, the comment section. Oh, you didn't do this? Yo! You're
going to be in the comment section talking shit. People are going to do that no matter what you do. You walk on water, they'll say you can't swim.
Oh, you didn't do this? Oh, hey, yeah. You couldn't talk about Shakur Stevenson next week, his fight. So I'll do a quick preview on Shakur Stevenson So there's no fans out there that would say that I left him out. He is fighting. I think it's a fight that he's going to handle pretty handily, to be honest. He's fighting at Artem Harutyunyan, who's got a record of 12-1. His only loss was to a top guy, to Frank Martin. So, but that's the good news. That's his only loss, to Frank Martin. Here's the bad news. That's the only time he stepped up really to a real high level of competition, and he came up short. But look, he lost to a good fighter. He fought hard with him. He went the distance with him. But again, if we got to judge him going into a fight at such a high level with Shakur Stevenson, silver medalist, champion, undefeated, if we have to judge his chances, we already look at it as the one time he stepped up to a level, he wasn't quite at that level. So
I can provide some context for you for the fight for our friends at MyBookie. And if you're going to bet on the fight, go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code Atlas. MyBookie has the line right now at minus 2,500 on Shakur Stevenson, plus 820 on Artem. That means you have to bet $100. You have to bet $2,500 to win $100 on Shakur Stevenson. So that tells you what the expectation is on this fight. And interestingly, the over 10.5 rounds, you got to lay $178 to make $100. So consensus seems to be this fight's going over. You can get back 127 on the under 10.5 rounds.
Yeah, look, again, he's 12-1, 7 knockouts. He's not a puncher. He's 33 years old. Okay, I watched him because if I'm going to do the job, I'm going to do the job. So I watched him. He's not a bad boxer. He's technically sound. Artem Harutyunyan. He's technically sound. He's pretty conventional. He likes to use a jab. He likes to box on the outside if he's left to his own devices. He would like to box on the outside. He's not really a go-get-you guy. He will go and try to come forward if he needs to, but he's not really set up to be an inside fighter, although if he's in spots inside, he'll go to the body, he will, but that's really not his style. That's obviously not how he looks to make his living. He looks to box on the outside, control range, use his jab to set everything up. Again, technically solid. He really is the picture of what you would see if you're looking up boxer in Webster's dictionary. He's a standard conventional boxer. He uses legs on the outside a little bit. Like I said, he sets the table with the jab. He'll look to eat with the right hand. He can put punches together. He covers with his hands. He doesn't have real glaring faults where his hands are low and all of that. But he is not at the talent level. He's not at the development level technically or just physically gifted with the ability of Shakur Stevenson. Obviously, Top Rank understands that. He's not there to be a threat to Shakur Stevenson. Ken just gave you all you needed to know about what the lines makers have out of it. I think he can go rounds. Shakur Stevenson doesn't really look to get rid of anybody. Shakur Stevenson is a guy who's a ghost in the ring. He's a guy that, I've said it a million times, you come in 3 inches, he goes back 6, and he counters the hell out of you. He's got quick hands. If you stand in front of him, he'll just pick you apart. He'll get off. He'll pick his spots. He counter punches beautifully. He's got all the tools. He's got good eyes, Stevenson. The most difficult thing about Stevenson is his style. It's hard to beat him, and it's hard to look good with him. He's got a style that doesn't give you anything. It doesn't really give you too many opportunities to say, okay, I got you. Okay, you made a mistake. Because his temperament is to be cautious, and his style is to fight in a way that is not allowing for mistakes, not allowing for gamble. But this is a fight that I think he could gamble a little bit if he wants to. If he wants to come up and shut up some of the people that say he's not exciting. And look, everyone has their different view of what they like. Some like vanilla ice cream, some like, pistachio. Yeah, it's all up to your individual taste. Some people love a guy defensive who could take you apart, who could just pick you apart defensively, where you can't hit him in the backside with a handful of rock salt, like Cuss would say, standing right in front of you. And sometimes Stevenson could be that defensive ghost where it's hard to hit him, and meanwhile he can touch your back. He can be that pitcher in a baseball game that just disarms the batter, just takes the bat out of his hands, hits corners, doesn't throw 100 miles an hour, but he mixes up the corners. He keeps the guy off balance. If you like that, if you like the art of boxing, then you like Shakur Stevenson. But if you want somebody who's going to take chances, who's going to go in there, like I'll name someone. See, people say, "Oh, but Teddy different." I'll name guys who were talented like Shakur, even more talented in some ways, but as talented as it gets, and could do those things, responsible defensively, where if he didn't want you to touch him, you weren't touching him, but at the same time, he went and got you. Well, it's one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of my favorites. His name is Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, I mean, he could do all those things. I mean, it wasn't his temperament. It wasn't his, he wasn't a pure style of being a defensive fighter, but he could defend. He could do that if he wanted to. He had great legs, all of that. But he also wanted to go get you. Every time he got in the ring, he wanted to find a way to go get you. Stevenson hasn't always shown that, but I'm sure the potential for that is in him. But he doesn't need it. He don't need to satisfy me. He don't need to satisfy you or anybody. As long as he keeps winning and keeps getting paid and keeps getting titles, and he's young. He's 27 now. That's in his mind. That's all he needs to do. But I'm just saying that if he wants to go and be a little bit more aggressive, this is a guy who's not a banger. This is a guy who is in front of your boxing. He's got an opportunity to do that. At the end of the day, I think it probably goes rounds, unless, like I said, unless he decides that he's going to use this as his test tube in the lab to show everybody that, hey, if I want to go after someone, I could go to the body a little bit and try to break them down. But at the end of the day, I think that Stevenson probably wins a lopsided decision over Artem Harutyunyan.
That's as thorough an analysis as you're going to get for this fight anywhere on the interwebs. With that, 2.5 hours, we gave the fans everything they wanted and then some. I hope everyone gets a chance to enjoy this, even if it's in 2 sittings. But thanks to everyone for being with us. We appreciate you guys. Teddy, thanks for staying up so late watching all the fights. I'm sure everyone appreciates the analysis. And I hope everyone has a great 4th of July week. And we'll be back next week to break down all the action per usual. Have a great week, everyone. Boom.